Audio check. Let me know if you can hear me. I think we're working. All right. Well, if you can hear me and you are watching right now, thank you for tuning in to Back Perch Weather Live for our second breaking news coverage stream of Typhoon Ragasa. Fortunately, Ragasa no longer a Category 5 like the last time we streamed, this time a Category 3, but still a very large and very powerful storm. And the breaking news we have right now is that the eye wall of Ragasa seems to be, at this moment, now moving onshore Shangshuan Island here, which is just southwest of Hong Kong. We weren't entirely sure if the core of this storm was actually going to be able to reach this area of southern China here. We thought maybe that if he continued to trend to the south, then we might have landfall, several hours from now in the middle of the night. And that might still be the case. But right now, the eye wall is definitely moving onshore as we speak on Shangshuan Island. And then on the nearby Ziyuan Island here. So Category 3 force conditions likely ongoing here on these two islands. Now, these two islands right here, they are not super densely populated. They are a little bit of a touristy area, and they also don't have very surge vulnerable coastlines. If you go and look at that on Google Earth or Google Maps or what have you, they're not super surge vulnerable coastlines. It appears to be very steep and rocky shores, and again, not densely populated. So that's good news, but still, that is the breaking news at this hour. The Category 3 eye wall of the last update, 125 mile per hour sustained winds, probably a little bit lower than that, so we're probably looking at 115, 120, because that last update from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center was like 4 or 5 hours ago. But still probably a powerful Category 3 storm. Very intense. You can see still 944 millibars. This thing has crossed the South China Sea after rampaging through the Babayan Islands just north of the mainland Philippine archipelago. And while the worst case scenario, I guess we've had a couple reasonable worst case scenarios that I'm going to detail out here that have not come to fruition. But still, we are still dealing with a very, very powerful major hurricane equivalent typhoon here. And this is not an area in southern China, in Guangdong province, that is frequently hit with major typhoons at all. In fact, if you look at the historical tracks and all of recorded history of typhoons down here, Ragasa is only the 7th Category 3 plus system to get even within proximity of this specific area. I'll try to detail it here, right? Not Hong Kong, but southwest of Hong Kong, but then also northeast of the island of Hainan down here. So this is not an area that frequently gets hit with major storms, but we're going to get to all of that in a second. Looks like we have a couple here comments already. And Mr. Peach from YouTube, thank you for joining us once again. Mr. Peach says, what a storm this has been. Absolutely. And I'm going to come back to that comment, but we got Shudo's Roots here saying, I hear you, and I'm sure others do, but can't confirm for others. That's good. Mr. Peach also says, I can hear you. All right, so we're all working with the audio. And now I'm going to come back to Mr. Peach's first comment here about what a storm this has been. And yeah, that's absolutely true. So right now we have radar view here. We actually do have functioning radar in China, so we can get a little bit better detail and a little bit better accuracy, and that's how we can see that at this very moment the eye wall is moving on shore on Shangshuan Island. But for a little background of what Typhoon Ragasa, also known as Typhoon Nando in the Philippines, has done, is I'm going to take you to what we've seen here. I can go by really fast. So here, play that again. So here was Typhoon Ragasa Nando as a super typhoon. This is what we saw 2 days ago, almost exactly 48 hours ago. Category 5 strength. The little dispute on how strong the winds were. Joint Typhoon Warning Center had the winds at 165 miles per hour sustained. The Philippine weather agencies and satellite estimates suggested an intensity a bit higher, 175, 180. Either way, this was an extremely powerful and very large, just a monstrous Category 5, as you can see. And that right there was the moment of the first landfall. That occurred over Babayan Island. And that was a devastating landfall from all indications. We haven't had a ton of news and videos and stuff like that come out of Babayan, right? That island right there, here, right in the center. I'll rewind that a little bit. So there you can see just how monstrous this thing was. But so we were covering this live, and that was the moment of the first landfall, of Ragasa's first landfall over Babayan Island. Did so at peak intensity, likely sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and a minimum pressure of 905 millibars. I would say maybe even lower than that. And the images we got out of Babayan Island here today, we've gotten a few images and one video. And as feared, pretty much as you'd expect when a storm like this hits an island, right? Kind of reminiscent of Hurricane Irma hitting Barbuda, for example, back in 2017 in the Atlantic Basin. What we've seen so far in the limited damage images and videos out of Babayan Island is that trees have been splintered, just, absolutely shredded. I saw a tree, some have appear to be broken off by the stump. And then others, I saw one was just like a skeleton of a tree where the trunk was there. And then you had all these little ends because all the branches had just been completely ripped off. Really eerie stuff. Massive and severe defoliation, right? I was talking about that on our previous live stream, how when you get Category 5 winds like this, especially at the caliber of 175 miles per hour, you're no longer talking about the destruction of the man-made infrastructure in an area. You're talking about the destruction of the area's natural ecosystem, right? That's what's going to suffer. You're going to see animals suffer. You're going to see the flora and fauna just get completely shredded. And in the case of Babayan Island here, you had a lush green tropical landscape, as is usually the case, right? That's usually what the climate and the biome is for areas that get hit with super powerful tropical cyclones. So you had a lush green rainforest island, really beautiful actually, rainforested volcanic island, and it has been just torn up, shredded. From the buildings, the few buildings we saw, many had their roofs just completely blown off. A lot actually looked pretty much gutted inside and out. The walls were still standing because again, as I was noting, right, some of these islands, they have very solid concrete-like building materials and structures, so they have a lot of concrete walls and buildings there because they get hit with typhoons a lot. Maybe not of this power, maybe not typhoons as this strong per usual, but they get hit with typhoons a lot, so they have concrete houses and a little bit better infrastructure, even though these are kind of poor areas. But man, you're just stressing that out when you get hit with something as monstrous as this. And so we saw a lot of buildings shredded, roofs torn off, and that also looks like they may have been gutted with just the concrete walls still standing. And we also saw the second landfall. So, wait, too fast. So here was the second landfall over the oh my gosh, wait. Whoa. We good? Okay. So here was the second landfall, pretty much at the same intensity, maybe a little bit lower, but still definitely Category 5. There you can see Kalayan trapped within that massive, that near 35 to 40 mile wide, just breathtaking in the most horrible way, stadium effect of Super Typhoon Ragasa Nando's eye. And so Kalayan, they got the same treatment as Babayan did. Not as much news out of there, but we did see, again, very similar damage pictures, a lot of torn vegetation, roofs blown off of buildings. And in the case of Kalayan, I actually saw a few shots where there were boats, cattywampus, that had been lifted inland and deposited on the sides of the roads. I don't know where those boats started, so I can't really look at that and tell you for sure that, oh yeah, you had 10 to 15 feet of storm surge occur there. So I can't say I was certain because I don't know where the boats started off. But nevertheless, boats were picked up from someplace and carried by some level of storm surge inundation. So indeed, Kalayan did see storm surge. We were discussing that during our live stream 2 days ago about the possibility. It looked like some beaches in Kalayan looked like they were low enough that you could see some seawater rise kind of come over normally dry ground and flow inland. And then here was the immediate after effects, what Ragasa did going into the South China Sea. So I'll end it there. And now we'll go back to real-time radar imagery here. But that's what happened on the Babian Islands. And I'm going to get to another comment here. Let's see. So we have a lot to unpack here, guys. Breaking news, though, right now, the eye wall is coming ashore on Shangshuan Island here. Southern China, Guangdong province. Shuda's route says the sheer size of Ragasa alone is a huge danger since it will have higher storm surge. Tropical storm and typhoon winds will extend further, and torrential rainfall will be brutal since the scope of rain bands are so extended. Yes, this is a large system. So let's turn off radar here for a second just to get a view. And oh yeah, look at that. So the eye is beginning to cave in these, finally, in these last few frames. We've seen the eye of Ragasa hold up remarkably well, be very well organized and circular across duration of the South China Sea. It's now starting to cave in due to sheer land interaction, so we are seeing some weakening, probably a little bit lower than 125 miles per hour, but in the West Pacific, you never know. Can't take any chances. This system is really large, very powerful, and has had a lot of energy and inertia behind it. But there you go. So let's just zoom out the wind field and the cloud canopy here. If I can scale Shudo's comment down a little bit. And just look at the size of the cloud canopy for Ragasa. If I rewind, oops. Let's look like. So if it logged me out of, that's a bummer. Well, we can do without it. Windy appears to have locked me out, or not locked me out, just logged me out of my account for now, but that's okay. We don't need to go backwards here. We're looking at it real time. So, but there, yeah, so you can just see the massive cloud canopy there of Ragasa and Nando. Very large storm, pretty large core because of how powerful the system was. So it's weakened now, yes, but with weakening comes an expansion of the wind field, and just it's been a very solidly large typhoon. Not colossal or gigantic by any means, right? I wouldn't say that. But definitely a larger than not storm. And that is pretty much, wow. So that eye is just getting so close. So let's go back to radar. Wow, that might be, oh my goodness. Wait. That's a forecast, which I don't really want. So let's go to the real time. So the real time radar here is showing us what we're looking at this moment. And my goodness, I think we might think we might have a landfall in it. I think it could be sooner than an hour and 20 minutes. There you see it on your top left-hand corner is the landfall clock. But I was assuming that Ragasa would make landfall over here on this island. But maybe not. Maybe we're making landfall here on Shangshuan. So I might have to adjust that landfall clock to like pretty soon. Let's see. Let's make sure there are no wobbles. But man, looks like this storm is wobbling a little bit north. And the eye is getting very close to Shangshuan Island now again. This island is in the eye wall, in a major hurricane force equivalent eye wall. Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. So again, before we continue looking at that live, a little background to what happened after those devastating landfalls on the Babian Islands in the Philippines, right? So what did Ragasa do in the South China Sea? Well, there were several models for a time predicting that Ragasa Nando would re-intensify pretty substantially, potentially hitting a third Category 5 peak in the South China Sea following some sort of eye wall replacement cycle. So that was a possibility, and even though this weakening right here that you're seeing was inevitable because of the land interaction, the idea of Ragasa re-intensifying over the South China Sea and re-energizing himself before coming into the coast of China, that would increase the impacts a little bit, but fortunately we did not see. So that was reasonable worst case scenario factor number one. Number one is that we did not see re-intensification over the South China Sea. Now, because there wasn't much shear or anything like that, right? Because it was still basically a favorable environment. It's just the storm's inner dynamics kind of got tired out, didn't really work out in a way that it could that he could re-intensify himself. But because of the relatively favorable conditions, we didn't see some rapid weakening. We didn't see dry air slots, cut in towards the eye and compromise the system's core. So we have seen a very gradual and slow weakening trend up until really just the last couple of hours. Again, just because of the land interaction here. The low angle landfall, right? Ragasa not coming in perpendicular, coming in more parallel, which weakens a storm more before it, fully gets on shore. So that was reasonable worst case scenario number one that didn't come true for the China landfall. So that was good. And then, of course, number two was the prospect that we could have a direct Hong Kong landfall. And that was a very real prospect. Here's Hong Kong up here that you can see them, right? Okay, so here's Hong Kong, right? Obviously a mega city, one of the largest cities in the world. And had Ragasa Nando come in and made a direct landfall, and it's still close as it is, right? But had Ragasa come in and made a direct landfall over Hong Kong, that would have been pretty devastating, very, very costly, to say the least. And it would have resulted in billions of dollars of damage for sure. You would have seen very serious wind damage, probably some pretty bad surge damage too. But that did not happen either. As you can see, Ragasa, fortunately for Hong Kong, and I think probably fortunately for the overall impacts, Ragasa's core is missing Hong Kong. That city really dodged a major bullet here. And this kind of goes back maybe all the way back to during the Babayan Island landfalls, when in the final couple of, I would say, 12 hours before those landfalls, Ragasa Nando wobbled a little bit to the south and southwest. And that was a pretty substantial, small on the grand term of things, but substantial enough to hit the Babayan Islands instead of hitting the Batanes Islands to the north, where Ragasa was initially forecast to hit. That's why all the storm chasers were up there. They didn't get footage of the core because they were all in Batanes, and then there was the wobble. Ragasa took the wobble south, and so he hit the Babayan Islands instead. But I think this is really kind of a trickle-down effect of that original southwest wobble we saw before the storm crossed through the Luzon Strait, right? Because now here you're seeing the system, the typhoon, is making landfall in Guangdong province, China, at about the same distance southwest away from Hong Kong as the Babayan Islands were southwest of Batanes. So because of that southwest wobble, we missed the ultimate worst case scenario, which was a direct hit on Hong Kong. So they really dodged a bullet. So not a reasonable worst case scenario for China by any means of the imagination. But again, this is still a very powerful storm and a large storm. So we're talking about the storm surge risks and the storm surge potential. We don't know for certain where we could see the worst surge, right? We don't have a great idea of where that could happen. But if there is a low-lying, vulnerable area near the coast, and this eye wall, right, even without the eye wall, and I'm going to get to that in a second because we have more breaking news. It's coming in right now as I speak, guys. Okay, we have more breaking news. It appears we have footage. I can't show it here on stream, but I might repost it on my X feed soon. It looks like we have footage of pretty major looking, at least in an isolated incident. I don't think it's widespread, but I think somewhere in Ocean Park, Hong Kong, there's this crazy video of a wave of seawater crashing through this glass door or something. I'm gonna have to look at it again, but it's coming in. Haven't been able to totally confirm it yet, but it might look legit, guys. So we might already have tangible reporting of significant storm surge flooding. Certainly that could rise to the level of life-threatening. Remember, you don't need crazy 10, 15, 20 feet of storm surge to be life-threatening. Okay, 3 feet can be life-threatening. That can sweep a person off their feet if obviously they're in a very bad spot and they haven't been paying attention and they're unwisely walking through water levels that deep. But yeah, but even regardless of life threatening, that causes damage, right? If you have 3 feet of seawater, okay, that may not sound bad from the outside, but put 3 feet of seawater, or even 1 foot of seawater in any building, especially in an area where you have a bunch of buildings stacked close together. Put a foot of seawater in any indoor space, and you'll see that's some pretty serious damage that occurs, and that really drives up the cost total of the storm. So, breaking news right now, I'll get to that in a second, but we might have our first tangible reports of serious storm surge from Ragasa here in South China. Again, at the moment, the eye wall is moving on shore on Shangshuan Island. As I said, Shangshuan Island is not surge vulnerable. It doesn't looks like very steep rocky coastline, so they'll mostly have to worry about the winds there. There are a lot of wind turbines, though. I hope those are locked down. Those will probably survive. But yeah, so definitely kind of a touristy island, not super populated, so that's good. But the mainland behind them, right? And you, of course, have the city of Yangjiang, I think actually is how you pronounce it. And Yangjiang here is a major city with a population of 2.6 million people. And here's this very powerful eye wall of Ragasa, maybe wobbling north here. We may be closing in on a landfall here on Shangchuan Island. And maybe also Xiachuan Island, which is right over here, just to the west of Shangchuan. But let's get to some more of these comments. Pyro JM Basa saying someone in Kalayan captured a photo of the Eye of Ragasa. Yes, I don't know if you guys saw that, but there is an incredible photo of the stadium effect. That's what we were wondering in real time. Like, man, who is anyone in the eye of this Category 5 monster? Because Ragasa had such a huge eye, as I just showed you, right? Such a huge stadium effect of an eye, just absolutely crazy. And because of that low pressure, right, 905 millibars or lower, while he crossed the Babayan Islands, we were wondering if anyone was standing there, if they went out in the eye and captured a photo, how crazy that would look, right? That huge stadium effect, towering, violent clouds of the eye wall surrounding you on all sides, and then you've got blue sky and sun coming through. Well, indeed, there are two pictures from, I believe it was Klein, two pictures looking up at that bright blue sky and that inside that huge eye, just totally surreal and crazy. One of the craziest images you'll see from inside the eye of a storm. So if you didn't see that, you should definitely go look for it. It's everywhere. Sean Mo asking, how far is it from China or Hong Kong? So it's not very far from China, the country, not very far at all here. As you can see, the eye wall is definitely on shore of Shangchuan Island here. That is an island in Guangdong province, China, right? This is all China here, okay? So this is what we're looking at. Here's radar. This is all China. And there you can see, again, just kind of puts into perspective the size, the very good size of Ragasa. And he's not very far from China at all. He's hitting China as we speak. In terms of Hong Kong, so here's Hong Kong right here. So here's Hong Kong. They really dodged a bullet. As I said, they have just missed the core, barely, but they have just missed the core of Category 3 Typhoon Ragasa. And, you know, had the storm actually come in towards a direct trajectory into Hong Kong, right, we might have seen a 130 mile per hour Category 4 or a 125 mile per hour high in Category 3 landfall. Again, it would have been really, really bad to have that eye wall go through a megacity like that. Based on the fact that I think we have surge footage from Ocean Park, Hong Kong, of a big ocean wave crashing through some glass doors in a building, it does appear that they have had storm surge just from being on the periphery of the storm, right? Even though the core has stayed, 100 plus miles, even at its closest approach, away from Hong Kong. And even then, they've looked like they've gotten storm surge. So there's Hong Kong, and that's how far Ragasa missed. And my goodness, that eye is getting so close. Wow, we could have a landfall here, guys. We could have a landfall here pretty soon. Patrick WX asking, have you reposted the image? I have. I'll tell you. So I've reposted on X, at BackPerchCrow on X, and I'll show you here how far down it is. You got to scroll to last night. So I reposted Storm HQ's post with the two pictures. And that was like, what, 1, 2, 9. $25 posts down from the top on my X feed. So if you scroll exactly 25 posts down, you will see those images. Those were posted by Storm HQ, but also by a lot of other sources. You can also just kind of search it into X as well. I'd show you it here, but I can't because I've reposted Storm Chaser footage, so I can't accidentally show that on stream. But if you go to my X feed, you can see those insane eye shots, those insane pictures of the eye of a true monster Category 5 hurricane. That's 25 posts down from this live stream. Pyro JM Basa says Ragasa reminds me of Meranti 2016. Yep, that is a parallel that we've seen multiple times here, and I'll show you where Meranti tracked. Here though, this is interesting though. So here I want to show you the rarity of Category 3 plus storms in this specific area of southern China. As you can see, it's not common. We did have Saola come in kind of a similar trajectory. Saola got even closer to Hong Kong than Ragasa is here. But Saola came in as a Category 3, really drug herself along that coastline for a good deal of time there. But Saola came in, but before Saola, all you have is Vicente 2012, Hagabut 2008, Rose 1971, Ruby 1964, and Susan 1953. So these are the only 6 storms until today in recorded history that have closed in on this area of South China's coastline at Category 3 plus strength. So Ragasa in a pretty rare territory here. Not too often do we see a storm. So like in real time, right? Ragasa's right here, right? This is Shangchuan Island. This is where he's trying to make landfall here. And oh my goodness, the eye might be going over Shangchuan Island here. So we could officially have landfall. Look also here, interesting, this dry slot here. You can see this dry slot as the storm kind of weakens a little bit in the core structure of roads. We're getting a dry slot with very little precipitation. Definitely a lot of intense banding. And look at, so right here, I would guess, based on radar here, it's looking like the most intense winds, probably where you're getting those Category 3 equivalent sustained winds happening in the northwest quadrant, guys. Northwest quadrant, which is currently hitting Shangchuan and Zhejiang Island really hard. These two islands are getting pounded right now. And we could have a landfall here pretty soon. Maybe way less than an hour. Yeah. But going back to Pyro's comment about Meranti, that's one of the common parallels we've seen with Ragasa. Because here was Meranti. Now, the parallel comes with the fact that both of these storms, both Meranti in 2016 and Ragasa, were very large and extremely powerful Category 5s, 175 mile per hour plus sustained winds when they crossed through the Luzon Strait and made landfall over populated areas. Meranti did it up north in the Batanes Islands. Ragasa did it down here south across. So here are the two landfalls, Babayan and Kalayan here. This is where the two landfalls occurred. But, you know, very similar. I would say that Meranti's still kind of in a league, in his own league with how intense and crazy that storm was. Like, Meranti's considered one of the most powerful tropical cyclones ever captured by satellite data, even though the estimates don't implicitly say that. Many people regard Meranti as one of the most powerful tropical cyclones we've ever witnessed in the modern satellite era. So Meranti still takes the crown, in my opinion, but yes, similar storms with the way they went through the Luzon Strait at such a high intensity. But then also, of course, they made landfall in mainland China as a pretty powerful typhoon. And that's, rarer than you might think, right? Mainland China does not get hit with very powerful typhoons that often. And we could see Ragasa, what was this, Category 2 here. So we could see Meranti made landfall as a Category 2 way up here. Right now, Ragasa is way, way, way south here. Now down this area, which is what we're watching right now. But nevertheless, could see Ragasa come in at a similar strength, high in Cat 2, low in Category 3. That's what we're tracking right now. The eye wall is onshore, Shangchuan Island, Zhejiang, they're getting pounded. Patrick WX said, all right, thank you, I found it, referring to those crazy images of the eye. But this is not all, guys. This is not all. So what we witnessed in the Babayan Islands with the Category 5 landfall was crazy. And the damage as you would expect, there's visible, which doesn't show all that much. The damage in the Babian Islands appears to be devastating. We still have to get better information, right? I'm sure more word and videos and images are going to come out of that area in the coming days. But the breaking news we have tonight, breaking news, guys, that we have tonight is that unfortunately 14 people, at least 14 casualties, and not in the Philippines. We have had some casualties there that we're going to get to. But we have had 14 confirmed casualties in Taiwan, okay, all the way up here in Taiwan in Hualien County, which is this county up here. 14 confirmed fatalities after the heavy torrential rainfall from the outer rain bands of Ragasa as the system was making landfall in the Babian Islands, right? As the system right here was crossing through the Luzon Strait, his outer rain bands poured torrential rainfall in Hualien County, Taiwan. That caused a decades-old lake dam to burst, and it sent a violent torrent of floodwaters into, I believe it was a Guangfu township. I think that's the area. Guangfu Township, where tragically 14 fatalities have been confirmed. And the videos from that, and I've reposted those much more recently, so if you want to see videos of what happened in Hualien County, those are also some of the latest posts on my X feed, Outback Perch Crew, as well. And it's crazy. The violent floodwaters, you can see cars, people just getting swept away, carried away by extremely fast-moving flash floodwaters from that dam break. And I said on X, this was a perfect example, and it's a tragic example of how you can't just focus. You can't just focus on where the core of a strong tropical cyclone is going. Sometimes, in fact, often, you see, I was trying to get a longer rain accumulation, but oftentimes you will see severe effects and potentially life-threatening effects occur far outside of the core of strongest winds. And what we've seen in Hualien County, definitely heartbreaking, and that is an example of that, with the heavy rains causing a dam break, causing a flash flood that has unfortunately claimed 14 lives. And the videos are just crazy, guys. The videos are absolutely insane from that flash flood. And sadly, there are many more people missing at this moment. Now, that might change, right? But at this moment, there are still several more people missing. So that's the breaking news going on in Taiwan right now. We're going to go back to here. What's going on in southern China? Pirate JM Basa commenting, I think the tornado that hit Ilocos Sur during Ragasa is in EF3. Not sure, but the damage is catastrophic. An EF3 would definitely be something if that was an EF3 strength system. If you give me guys a second, that's my camera, and I'm going to go plug that in here real quick because it's alerting me of its low battery. So I'm going to go plug my camera in here real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, I hope that didn't shake it too much. I think I got it. All right, so yeah, and you know, here's a real time model representation. What you're looking at here is not satellite or radar, but this is showing the flow of the wind. So definitely having that eye wall here, raking across Shangchuan and Zhechuan Island. You're also seeing onshore flow up here, of possibly affecting Xuandao here, the city of Xuandao, Zhangjian. and Guangdong. So all these areas are getting onshore flow right now and may potentially be seeing some level of storm surge. Again, it's hard to say without knowing which areas are more vulnerable and low-lying, are the most vulnerable and low-lying comparatively. But yeah, big wind field is there. You can see from Ragasa. Big impacts being felt. So we're going to look here, see what our latest updates are. During the closest approach of Ragasa to Hong Kong, the city raised its, I believe it's a T10, which was their highest level of storm warning that Hong Kong can issue for the city. So trying to get confirmation on that surge video in Ocean Park, Hong Kong. And it appears it is confirmed here. So now that I'm looking at it. So yeah, big time storm surge. Really big time storm surge. Looks like huge waves, right? So you might have a little bit of that wave action here. And let's pull waves up. Yeah, so there you can see the massive waves. So that's a zoom out, right? So the whole South China Sea, right? Ragasa has turned the whole South China Sea into a frenzy. And here in Hong Kong, you can see right up to the coast where big time waves, 15 feet, 4.5 meters, really coming into these coastal areas. And it looks like that's where waves like that coming into the coastline, it appears that's where, with this onshore flow, right? Notice the onshore flow, the winds are pushing the seawater onshore. It appears that's where this crazy footage is coming from. So I'm going to repost this right now, guys, if you want to see it. Big time storm surge at the Fullerton Ocean Park Hotel. So I'm reposting that now. Again, big time flooding. Actually, the biggest impacts, apart from the Babian Islands that Ragasa has induced, were actually in Taiwan from the outer rain bands from heavy rain. Looks like Brandon Clement has a pretty wild looking video showing strong winds, some wind tunnel effect through the tall skyscrapers of Hong Kong. That surge video is really wild at the Fullerton Ocean Park Hotel. Namely because I haven't seen any other reports of significant storm surge other than that one. So I do find that interesting. And there you go, Shudo's Roots. Just watched it. Holy cow, the pure strength of that flooding crashing through those glass windows at that hotel you just retweeted. Yeah, that is crazy. That is really crazy, guys. So you should go watch that video. It is insane. That is definitely the most insane video we've seen of Typhoon Ragasa in South China so far. I mean, it just crashes through those windows of that hotel. Again, looking like we are about to get landfall here in Shangchuan Island. a bit sooner than initially expected. Big stuff going on. Substantial impacts here. In southern China. That original video of that storm surge came from Aaron Bush. Aaron Bush at the Ocean Park Fullerton Hotel in Hong Kong. So significant storm surge flooding, violent waves happened somewhere. Again, I find that really interesting just because I haven't seen widespread reports. Just because I haven't seen widespread reports of storm surge in other areas of China or Hong Kong. Hong Kong definitely has been getting blasted by strong winds for quite a while now, as the typhoon has kind of slid to the south of the city. So they've been getting big time rain, big time wind. But yeah, so one video report we have of major storm surge flooding, at least in some location, in a very small location. I'm not saying huge, major everywhere, because I don't have widespread reports, but that one video is pretty crazy, guys. So somewhere got hit with some really big waves. We know that for sure. Somewhere got hit with some really big waves. And sadly, several people have been killed in Taiwan from flash flooding. At least 14, many more missing. A couple of fatalities also reported in the Philippines. We saw 2 in mainland Luzon at the time when we were live streaming that event when Ragasa was crossing through the Luzon Strait. We saw reports of people on the ground in Luzon saying that there was pretty good flooding happening there, that farm fields were getting ruined and filled with water, and we did get further video confirmation of that as well. So all in all, this has been a very significant storm, very damaging when you take it all into consideration. Okay, wait a second. Just as I said that, looks like breaking news, guys. We have Aaron Bush. Whoa! Holy cow, guys. Breaking news. Aaron Bush has another video of a huge wave crashing. Now, this is not happening right now. This happened a little earlier. But Aaron Bush has another video, and I'm going to repost it here soon, of pretty, again, for that localized area, major storm surge inundation. He's saying this is from a restaurant, Bistro La Bai, in Sung Kwan O at 6:08 a.m. Wednesday, I'm assuming local time. Typhoon Hunters PH commenting, what a historic storm. Indeed. Eyewall continuing to rage on Shangchuan Island, Zhechuan Island too. And we're going to get landfall, looks like, here pretty soon, guys. Pretty soon. That eye is getting very close now. So we're coming up on landfall, but this is just a crazy video. So now we have 2 different videos, both from Aaron Bush. One looks like more like a CCTV, like security cam footage. But 2 two videos from earlier today that are coming out now. In the Hong Kong area of huge waves crashing through glass windows and doors and just completely flooding these coastal buildings. These very expensive coastal buildings. So that is really wild. Again, the craziest stuff, some of the last stuff we reposted on X was major freshwater flooding that occurred due to torrential rain from the outer rain bands of Typhoon Ragasa 2 days ago on September 21st. Guangdong Township in Hualien County, Taiwan, got absolutely smashed after a dam broke and released violent floodwaters throughout Guangdong Township that has killed at least 14 people. And the footage is crazy. It's carrying cars away like rubber toys. Not a good situation there in Taiwan. Looking for any further reports of surge, because that is what we're definitely concerned about. Very legit tropical storm force conditions have been going on in Hong Kong. It looks like that might be backing down now a little bit. New York Post. The New York Post has a pretty crazy image as the front headline of it looks like their article that they just posted out 2 minutes ago. And they have a crazy still photo of what looks like huge waves crashing over a seawall in Hong Kong or the Hong Kong area. I'm going to repost a video right now. This was several hours ago. So not current, but several hours ago, showing the fierce winds and rain that were happening in Hong Kong. And that's really a testament to just how large and strong Ragasa still is. Because that was several hours ago and the core did not get close to Hong Kong, really. It stayed well offshore and still pretty gnarly conditions there in a major metropolitan city. But certainly here tonight, it's the storm surge that we are most concerned about. Unbelievable, guys. Crazy storm surge. Typhoon Hunters PH asking, what is the peak pressure of Ragasa? So the peak pressure of Typhoon Ragasa occurred while the storm was making landfall over Babion Island in the Luzon Strait a little over 48 hours ago. The peak pressure that is most likely accurate was the Japan Meteorological Agency's estimate of the pressure. That was 905 millibars. But, and there's a pretty big but here, okay? But the thing is, that was the secondary peak intensity. So that was the estimate, the JMA's estimate of Ragasa's peak intensity during the storm's secondary peak intensity after he went through a very notable and very powerful eyewall replacement cycle on the 21st, okay? Now, from all indications and all satellite data, we know that secondary peak intensity that occurred with the big, huge stadium effect eye and all that was almost certainly more powerful than Ragasa's initial peak intensity, which was when the storm was kind of a tighter, almost a pinhole eye, not quite, but still a tighter, smaller storm. that had just undergone explosive intensification from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5. That was the initial phase of intensification in 24 hours, 80 miles per hour to 160 miles per hour. Okay? During that initial peak intensity, the estimates were about 920 millibars, but that was all blown out of the water, no pun intended, when Ragasa's small eye happened to travel directly over a buoy to the east of the Philippines, which was really crazy because the odds of the eye of a storm, especially a small one, and of such an intense storm, no less, of a Category 5 storm going directly over a buoy is so infinitesimally small. You can think of it like the odds of a meteor hitting the Earth, okay? That's how low those odds are, and yet Ragasa tracked directly over this random buoy out in the middle of the ocean. And while it still has to be confirmed after the fact, that buoy recorded a sea level pressure of 900.3 millibars. So that was 20 millibars lower. That was way lower than what was being estimated via satellite at that time. Okay, that was the initial peak intensity. The secondary peak intensity, all satellite data would indicate, was actually more intense than the initial peak intensity. So does that mean just because the satellite estimates are satellite estimates perfect? No, right? That's why in the Atlantic, we have recon to confirm that. We can't just go purely off satellite data. So does it mean for sure that Ragasa's secondary peak intensity and just overall peak intensity was lower than the official 905 millibar estimate from the JMA? No, it doesn't mean it for sure. The pressure might have been 905 during that secondary peak intensity. Maybe it was. But just based on the fact that the initial peak intensity was 900.3 recorded by that buoy, and you had that secondary peak intensity produce a much stronger satellite presentation, I would say 905 millibars peak intensity, peak pressure for Ragasa, with the caveat that it was likely lower than that. Maybe even sub 900 MBAR, again, if you take into consideration that buoy recording during the initial peak intensity and the fact that the secondary peak intensity looked a lot more intense than the first. So judging off that, Ragasa could have been a sub 900 millibar storm. Either way, Typhoon Ragasa Nando is the most powerful storm to form on Earth since Hurricane Milton back in October of 2024. Shudo's Roots saying, man, that video you retweeted from Vina Verde, that wind sounds like a banshee shrieking, terrifying. Yeah, crazy wind. Crazy wind from Hong Kong. So they've been getting lashed pretty good by tropical storm force winds and very heavy rainfall and clearly big time storm surge. I'm also going to repost that second storm surge video here any second. Once I just get 100% confirmation that that's not some old video. You know, that happens a lot. But anyway, here back while we wait on that, while I wait on confirmation of that breaking news that we're getting crazy videos of storm surge flooding. Really, I would almost call it more like wave surge, not necessarily storm surge, like big, powerful waves coming in and sweeping into these coastal, looks like a hotel and a restaurant, just bursting through the glass doors and stuff. But right now, we are getting so close to what looks like we're going to have landfall here on Shangshuan Island. Oh, yeah. In fact, technically, so the eye is brushing Shangshuan right now. Landfall might actually technically occur on Xiachuan. So maybe my timer up there is more accurate. But in a sense, you could call this landfall already, but I'm going to wait to see if the eye directly, the center of the eye, directly goes on shore. Let's see, we have different areas of radar. So I'm going to check on that here. We're already an hour into the stream, and it looks like we're going to have landfall pretty soon here. If you're just joining us, thank you for tuning in on this pretty late night, actually. This is a pretty late night stream. And so it's pretty cool that we have all you guys watching. Typhoon Hunter's PH saying, wow, I think Milton also a 905 M-bar storm. Actually, Typhoon Hunter's PH, Milton was actually more intense than that. So Hurricane Milton, we had aircraft Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance in there. We had recon in there. And Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance confirmed that Milton was actually 895 millibars at peak intensity. So in fact, Milton was actually more powerful than 905. Confirmed readings of 895 millibars in the tiny 2 to 3 mile wide eye of Hurricane Milton back in October of last year. Milton also peaked with confirmed winds of 180 miles per hour. So yeah, if you're just joining us, thank you for tuning in for our late night live stream here of Typhoon Ragasa Nando's final landfall in southern China. Feel free to leave a comment or ask a question, and I'll do my best to answer it. Patrick WX coming. I do have a website for China's radars, but it updates pretty slow. Yeah, is that the Hong Kong one? I actually have that. Is this the one you're talking about? I have it on my phone here. I've got the Hong Kong Observatory radar image. It's getting a little far out of Hong Kong's range. I was trying to check and make sure this radar image here wasn't erroneous, that we really were getting close to landfall, and I think we are. I think we almost certainly are going to have landfall here, definitely within the next 35 minutes. So I like how that countdown, I like how my countdown is going. Typhoon Hunter's PH commenting, yeah, but comparing the eye, Milton is nowhere close to Ragasa. Yeah, well, I mean, you can respect the storms. I think there's something interesting about the two different types of eyes you get, right? So I'll real quick pull that up, which is fitting, right? Because her Typhoon Ragasa, Nando here, is the most powerful storm to form on Earth since Hurricane Milton. So let me pull that up. I don't think this will take away. All right, so here on your screen is the eye of Hurricane Milton. 1 second here. I'm going to do a little comparison here while we close in on landfall and keep monitoring the news. Okay, you guys can still see me, right? Oh, yeah, you can. Okay, so here we go. So here's a comparison of Typhoon Ragasa and Hurricane Milton. So again, these are the last two storms to get into the low 900s millibars anywhere on Earth that we know of. Milton got below 900 millibars for sure. I think Ragasa probably did, but here you go. So here's the comparison. So here's the 2 to 3 mile wide pinhole, one of the smallest eyes you will ever see of Hurricane Milton at peak intensity on October 7th, 2024. There you can see the turquoise glow. So this is in the Gulf, in the Atlantic Basin, just offshore of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And because Milton's just a crazy storm, right? Milton is just, and there's Shudo's Roots commenting, Milton was just absurd, man, the Rita of last year. Yeah. Just, and another absurd thing about Milton was just how close he was. It's so weird seeing such a tiny storm, but also such a tiny storm so close to land, right? So if you look closely, you can see a very pronounced turquoise glow in that crystal clear 895 millibar eye of Hurricane Milton. That turquoise glow is because Milton at peak intensity was over the shallower waters of the Yucatan Shelf, right offshore of the Yucatan Peninsula. So that's why you have the turquoise glow there. But yeah, just a crazy looking storm. So really, really tiny. Ragasa attaining almost the exact same pressure, almost the same winds. I think maybe 175 miles per hour. The satellite estimates and the Philippine Weather Authority estimate 180 miles per hour. But you know what? I'll take the low end and I'll say maybe 175 miles per hour is the most likely peak intensity. But that's only 5 miles per hour from Milton. So just a little weaker in both winds and pressure to Milton, Ragasa was, or maybe almost the same, very close. Either way, these storms did it in very different ways. Milton did it, tiny, tiny, little bitty eye, and then compare that to Ragasa. Boom! Look at that beast! So really just one of the all-time typhoon images you will ever see, because that is just one of the craziest eyes. I mean, look at that thing. So 3 to 4 miles wide compared to 30 to 40 miles wide. Not the clearest, had a lot of massive vortices, low-level clouds, but just crazy, just stunning. And it was clear enough that the blue sky and the sun could clearly be seen on the Babian Islands down there. So yeah, there you go. Comparison of Milton and Ragasa, the two most powerful storms. Milton was the most powerful storm worldwide in 2024. And so far, Ragasa Nando is the most powerful storm worldwide in 2025. Now back to our radar imagery as we close in on landfall. As that eye of Ragasa still pronounced on radar imagery closes in. Patrick WX saying is the website I was using, so maybe he was referring to, maybe the one I showed was correct. Okay, so all right, guys, so here, breaking news. Breaking news. Hold on. Breaking news here. I have a new video. So this is what I was talking about earlier, but now I'm going to repost it. I cannot show it on the live stream, but I'm going to repost it here on my X feed at Backperch Crew. Another one from Aaron Bush showing a crazy, just a huge, violent wave of storm surge crashed through the glass doors and windows of the Bistro La Baie restaurant, I think in the Hong Kong area. So I'm reposting that now. The wave comes crashing in through the doors, just completely breaks it down like a house of cards, breaks right through these glass windows, and just floods the whole first floor, like instantaneously. Just instantaneously floods the entire restaurant here, and then the furniture is just floating around in it. It's a significant storm surge. So I just reposted that. Go check it out. It's crazy. I mean, it is just crazy. And if someone was standing there, they would just have been clean swept off their feet. And that would be incredibly dangerous. Not even for drowning, but just like, getting swept off your feet and maybe hitting your head on the ground. And then a second wave comes in right after the first wave, just crashes right through the door, completely floods the whole restaurant. Insane stuff, guys. Wow. So they have a second video. A second video, if you want to see that. Backperch Weather on X. Second video of big time storm surge. I'd even call it wave surge in the Hong Kong area. Patrick WX looking at it now saying, oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. Look at that. That's just crazy. Very violent wave action. In that first video, too, there's two. And that first video from Aaron Bush is really psychotic because you can see as the wave comes up, it completely shatters the glass. I mean, you can just see the glass, boom, instantaneously shatter into all these little bits and pieces as this massive, this foamy, disgusting mess of seawater, foamy, brown, just crashes right through, completely floods that whole lobby. So a hotel and a restaurant. Those are the surge videos we've gotten so far in southern China. And then also some howling winds, torrential rainfall in Hong Kong. Getting some information here from Joel Chan on X, who's saying Ragasa was Hong Kong's second longest Signal 10 typhoon. So Signal 10, for context, is the highest possible storm warning that the city of Hong Kong can issue. And by the way, when I zoom out on radar, how crazy is that? How crazy looking is that? There you see across Shangchuan Island, Zhejiang, very low pressures everywhere here. Definitely in the Category 3 range. You can see that very robust onshore flow pushing that surge in. Shudo's Roots commenting, man, just how quickly storm surge causes water levels to rise is just the term for lost for words. Fits perfectly in that bistro. Labaye forgot the rest, but if anyone was in the way of that storm surge, you have no time literally to react. Yeah, you have no time. And that was, I'm calling that wave surge here, because that just comes in as a big violent ocean wave. That video right there comes in as a big violent ocean wave. But anyway, so the information from Joel Chan. The information from Joel Chan is that Ragasa was Hong Kong's second longest Signal 10 typhoon. Signal 10 is the highest possible storm warning Hong Kong can issue. And the core didn't even get close, really, to the city. I mean, it got close comparatively, but didn't really get super close. Seen a lot of videos from people in Hong Kong, taking videos from the skyscrapers. But right now, those storm surge videos, that's the breaking news right now, guys. That's what's circling the news feeds. But also, hey, don't forget, guys. Don't forget, not just that storm surge footage near Hong Kong, but also go, and it's on my feed too, but you can really just look it up anywhere on X. Go and look at the violent flash flooding, because it's honestly even crazier than those storm surge videos you just watched. Go look at that violent flash flooding that occurred in Hualien County, specifically Guangdong Township, Taiwan, where the outer rain bands of Ragasa, while the typhoon was making several devastating landfalls in the Babian Islands at Category 5 intensity. At that same time, the storm's outer rain bands were training across Taiwan. Taiwan, of course, we know is a very mountainous island and therefore is very prone to flash flooding like that. They have a lot of water reservoirs, lots of rivers, lots of lakes. And in this case, we had a lake dam burst, give way, and that's never good, right? Anytime you have a dam break of any kind, really, you're going to have some pretty severe flash flooding that is going to leave you very little time to react. And that's exactly what we saw in Guangdong Township, Taiwan. And in those videos, the cars are just like bobbing along the waters. They're just getting, pushed down these streets, just flowing really, really fast. Just incredibly scary footage. And these cars are bobbing on top of the water like nothing, like little rubber duckies. But not in a cute way, like in a horrifying way. Shudo's Roots comments, and people seem to forget that storm surge is considered 5 to 15 feet waves crashing a sword, not just one like a tsunami. Yeah, it's like one after another. And you can see that in some of those videos. Landfall looks like it's going to take place here any minute now within the next 20-30 minutes here. We're going to see landfall, I believe, over Zhejiang Island in southern China. Here you get a look at the radar loop. And honestly, we might have landfall anyway over Shangchuan Island because the eye could be caving in and becoming less defined. I mean, yeah, the eye is getting obliterated now. But it looks like, yeah, so it looks like here, satellite is a little off, is a little slanted. You can't even see the eye anymore, so I'm going to zoom out and just give you the scope, the absolute immense scope. Look at the cloud canopy and look at the outflow channel. My goodness. Look at this, guys. Look at the outflow channel of Typhoon Ragasa right now. That is flowing for thousands of miles across the entire coast of China, through the Koreas. Wow. Really stunning satellite imagery. Just goes to show you the overall pattern, how immense the overall pattern is. But yeah, we're definitely going to see a landfall here in Sichuan Island. Looks like. Patrick WX says that outflow is crazy. Yeah, I mean, just, one of the craziest outflows I ever saw was Hurricane Ian, right? If you might all remember that. Hurricane Ian's outflow extending up the entire length of the eastern seaboard of the United States. But this actually beats that. Now, I know Ragasa is weakening, not strengthening like Ian was, but look at this. That outflow goes straight through North Korea. Oh my goodness, guys. Holy moly. Typhoon Hunter's PHG's the outflow diameter. Yeah. Look at that. And to see it in motion. Oops. Let me pull that back up. Okay, so while we're looking at that insane outflow, right? Again, the outflow here of Typhoon Ragasa literally traveling all the way up China's coast and into North Korea. We also have Typhoon Neoguri still out there, but that's a dissipating fish storm, so no worry there. But we do have Tropical Storm Bualoy that looks like that system's going to be headed towards the Philippines. Don't think it'll be as strong, obviously, as Ragasa here. But Bualoy, Opong, also known as Opong, in Philippines, we're going to have to watch that tropical system, right? So we have another tropical storm brewing down here. And we're going to be tracking that closely, too, because it doesn't matter that this thing might not get very strong, because we just saw, as I was just talking about, the effects of a tropical system, just the rainfall, not necessarily the winds, that can have huge effects. Huge effects here. Just due to rainfall and inland flooding. So that's definitely something we're going to have to watch out for the Philippines, for the mainland Philippine archipelago, looks like. But anyway, right now, back to Ragasa. Just another shot here real quick, and let's see what it looks like on visible. Man. Just take a look at that, guys. Wow. Wow. So we are coming up possibly under 20 minutes to landfall here. If we go to infrared, we see the eye. And we see that eye is basically now making landfall over Sichuan Island in southern China. Here we go. So we are getting landfall. Let's reload the page. But we are getting landfall here. So it looks like our landfall clock is going to be very accurate. So that's how much time we have left. T-minus 18 minutes. Satellite's a little skewed, remember, so we're waiting for that radar signature to fully pass over. And by the way, so this is a late night live stream. We have 17 people watching. And that's just on YouTube alone. Wow. 17 people watching right now, and this is like a super late night live stream. Also 11 likes. So again, thank you everyone for watching right now. We are in the heat of it right now. Shangshuan and Sichuan Islands in southern China, they are getting raked by the Category 3, the likely Category 3, maybe coming down to Category 2, but still a very powerful eye wall here of Typhoon Ragasa Nando, the final landfall of this huge storm. And crazy that we have 17 people watching and 11 likes on the stream. That's super cool. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this live coverage here. But yeah, big news, guys. Big news is we are closing in on landfall here. 100% closing in on landfall. As a reminder, we are seeing that little northward jog here that's going to result in landfall over these couple islands. Looks like Zia Schwan is going to be ground zero. But remember, this is not going to be the end of it. And we're going to see Ragasa Nando continue on a little bit more to the west. So if you are in any of these cities here to the west, right? Yangjing, Shenyang, Lingmen, Shipai, you are not out of the woods yet. And I believe is Josh Morgerman on this island right here. So we didn't see Josh Morgerman. We didn't see Josh Morgerman on the Babayan Islands because he couldn't make it there. But I think he's on this island right here. So I think he's right here waiting for Ragasa to move over him. And certainly we know Morgerman is going to give us some great footage, possibly the best footage yet of Ragasa. And oh, look who is in here. We got Nito in the chat. Welcome back, Nito. Nito says, just finished storm chasing in Chao, Hong Kong. Sustained winds were around 125 kilometers per hour and max gusts of 192 kilometers per hour. Whoa! Let me check for any updates here, guys. But that's crazy, Nito. So Nito, guys, was storm chasing in Hong Kong. He has now joined our stream. He was here for our first live stream when Ragasa Nando was hitting the Philippines. Okay, so Nito is saying something pretty crazy here, right? So Nito was storm chasing in Hong Kong. He's saying max gust 192 kilometers per hour, and that's 120 miles per hour. Whoa. 120 mile per hour max gust? That's crazy. That is crazy. Thank you for sharing that information, Nito. Also, Nito, I don't know if you saw. You probably did. But if you didn't, there are several very crazy storm surge videos going around. From Typhoon Ragasa in the general Hong Kong area. Both of them originate from Aaron Bush. One shows waves violently crashing through and immediately flooding the lobby of the Fullerton Ocean Park Hotel. And then the second video shows waves violently crashing into a restaurant, the Bistro La Baie restaurant earlier today. KT says, didn't know Back Perch crew were so sexy. So Nito was storm chasing in Hong Kong, and he is reporting max gusts of 120 miles per hour, 192 kilometers per hour. Whoa. That is super crazy. So we've had several. All right, Nita saying, I saw the hotel video. Yeah, that hotel video is wild. Right? If anyone watching here, if they haven't seen the hotel video, you got to go see that hotel video. It's crazy. Oh no! A fish was spotted in the streets? Oh no. The fish are in the streets. It happens. Saying someone caught it, you think. Wow. There you go. I'm going to leave that comment up there. Fish was spotted in the streets. Oh, man. Landfall now possibly pretty much 11 minutes away. Looking at radar here. And I think we're getting a little hang up in our radar data, so I'm going to try to reload that because it looks like it's... Yeah, it looks like we're getting landfall here pretty soon, guys. Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of a radar malfunction there towards the end. If I go back to satellite, you can see that, yeah, I mean, okay, so this is pretty much the center. This is pretty much the center. So it looks like we're going to have landfall here any minute now. Less than 11 minutes away from landfall, from an official call of landfall in Sichuan province, or not Sichuan province, this is on Guangdong province, China. Sichuan Island. Also, if you are just now joining us, I'm gonna show you this insane outflow channel, how large it is. So here's radar overlaid with satellite. This is pretty cool. And you'll notice that the outflow, look at that. So look at the outflow of Typhoon Ragasa Nando, literally extending across the entire coast of China and well into North Korea. And then you can see the center, the eye wall, the circulation there, making landfall here in 10 minutes from now. T-minus 10 minutes to landfall on Sichuan Island. Crazy surge videos. Nando reporting 120 mile per hour wind gusts. Reporting sustained... Did you say... Okay, let me go back to that comment real quick. Sustained winds of Category 1 hurricane force equivalent. Sounds like. But then the gusts up to 120. That's really wild. That's the craziest thing. Okay, so what we know so far... What we know so far is that more than 14 people are dead in Taiwan from a violent flash flood that occurred after a dam in Hualien County failed and sent a torrent of floodwaters into Guangfu Township in Taiwan. That was 2 days ago, and the information is just coming out now. Or excuse me, I think the dam might have broken. I don't think the dam literally broke 2 days ago. I think the dam broke a little bit later. But yeah, the rains that induced that dam to break, that overflowed that lake, that occurred from the outer rain bands of Super Typhoon, from the outer rain bands of Ragasa Nando as he was making landfall over the Babayan Islands in the Philippines, crossing through the Luzon Strait. So very unfortunate news coming out of Taiwan. At least 14 people dead. Sounds like there's several more missing. Crazy footage of floodwaters carrying cars. Really, really fast. Really frightening stuff. And then here, we're looking at... Oh, look at that. Okay, wait. Maybe the radar data's updating a little bit more. Yeah, here. Let's stay zoomed out because that gives a really perspective. You can see the circulation there of Ragasa. And you can see that eye, that core coming into landfall here. Less than 8 minutes away. Also, an interesting fact is that Ragasa was the second longest signal 10, or so that's being reported, for Hong Kong in recent years. But it's the storm surge videos right now that's That's the true breaking news at this hour. Is the violent videos of storm surge crashing, these big waves crashing through the windows. So we do have significant and potentially life-threatening storm surge flooding around Hong Kong that at least occurred on the coast. Maybe not fully flooding, maybe more like, I'm kind of calling it wave surge because the way it kind of comes in one big swoosh. But yeah, so as of the last update, Typhoon Ragasa Nando was a Category 3 storm. So that was 5-6 hours ago. He might be a little weaker than 125 miles per hour. We're going to wait to see if we get a new update from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. I'm not sure that we are, though. So I think we might just have to kind of eyeball it for now as we get closer, as we're counting down those final minutes. But yeah, wow. Big stuff, big stuff. So we've had confirmed reports, video of damaging storm surge. Also, if you didn't see it, it appears that during Ragasa Nando's Category 5 landfall over the Babayan Islands in the Philippines, that looks like indeed devastating damage did occur, especially on Babayan and Calayan Islands, where Ragasa's eye traveled directly over. Ragasa's huge, 30 to 40 mile wide eye, which is here. So this is not right now. This was Typhoon Ragasa when he was a super typhoon at peak intensity. Minimum pressure of at least 905 millibars, possibly lower, and sustained winds up to 175 miles per hour as he made landfall over the Babayan Islands in the Philippines. And the one crazy video of the aftermath in Babayan shows splintered trees. Some trees snapped off at the trunk, at the base. Other trees just completely broken off, like all their branches are broken off. They look like skeletons. Total defoliation. Lots of devastation for the natural habitat as you get with super powerful Category 5s like that. And of course, many buildings had their roofs torn off and were all but gutted, and all that was left standing for a lot of those buildings was just their concrete walls. Also saw on Calayan some damaged photos that showed boats lifted inland and set kind of topsy-turvy on roads. So it looks like storm surge flooding did occur. And again, if we kind of compare here, so let's just look at, these islands here, Zhejiang and Shengshuan. You know, specifically, have we ever had a major typhoon landfall, a Category 3 plus typhoon landfall here? And the answer is yes. But it was in 1953. Typhoon Susan. A Category 3 that made landfall across Zhejiang and Shengshuan Islands. And that is their only, I mean, it appears, let me be a little bit more thorough. Making sure I'm getting this right. You guys are watching this in real time. Let's do that polygon. Yep, looking like Susan. So one typhoon in 1953 is the only other Category 3 plus storm to make landfall on these islands. Look at that. Susan in 1953. That is the only recorded Category 3 plus Typhoon to make landfall on these islands. And in 2 minutes and 18 seconds, we are about to see the official announcement. Back Perch Weather's official announcement, anyway, of landfall here on Zhejiang Island. Looks like is where the most direct landfall is occurring. I'll turn off radar and look at infrared just to see that little spot. The eye's caving in, but there you see that little spot. Yep, definitely moving over Zhejiang Island there. So we are witnessing a pretty historic event here because only one other Category 3 storm has made landfall here over these couple of islands in recorded history, and that was a storm in 1953. My goodness, you guys. Just another crazy statistic for this typhoon, which has been very destructive in Taiwan, in the Philippines, and now in southern China. Here we go. Less than 1 minute away. Still a very powerful radar signature and satellite presentation, even though we're now starting to see the inner core degrade and collapse due to land interaction. But wow. Here it comes for only the second time. Zhejiang and Shangshuan Island. And there we have it. We have landfall, everyone. Breaking news. Right now, we officially have landfall. The final landfall, or, well, I guess this might not actually be the final landfall because it won't be the final landfall, actually, I can say for certain, because we're going to see another landfall in the mainland of China. But here we go. Landfall of what is likely Category 3. Can't say for sure. Category 3 might be high in Category 2, but here we go. Typhoon Ragasa Nando has made landfall over Zhejiang Island. That's what all radar and satellite data would indicate at the moment. There's the eye right there. Has made landfall over Zhejiang Island in Guangdong province, China. Potentially as only the second major hurricane equivalent typhoon, Category 3 plus, to ever hit these islands. So, give me a second real quick, guys, to post that update to everyone. But that is breaking news right now. Breaking news. We have landfall. All satellite and radar data, what we're looking at right now indicates a landfall earlier than expected over Zhejiang Island. Patrick WX says, wow. So give me a moment here to just update everyone here. Making the call here of landfall. Wow. The tiny island of Zhejiang. Thought it was going to be on Shangshuan, but then the eye kind of went just south of that island and then hit Zhejiang. Crazy stuff. Do we have a Joint Typhoon Warning Center update in? I'm not sure that we do. So I'm not going to say it's a Category 3 for certain. It would certainly be a low-end Category 3. So, here, this is what I'll do. For now, until we get further confirmation, I'm basically just going to guesstimate this here, guys. So this is not an official update. I'll tell you when we get, if we get a Joint Typhoon Warning Center official update. I'm not sure that we will in a prompt manner. But so this is just me. This is back perch weather, a little bit of back perch weather here, prediction of what the landfall strength is. This is just a very rough approximation of what I'm going to go with right now until further confirmation. So I'm going to put a potentially a maybe. But this is potentially roughly I think maybe the maximum strength Ragasa, Typhoon Ragasa could be here at the point of landfall, since we're seeing the cave-in, right? Since we're seeing the system kind of degrade a little bit. Let's go back to radar to really soak that view in of landfall. Also, apologies for, I've got to update my breaking news little, folder there. You might probably notice that it had the Mexican flag in the background. That's because I made that thing during our first live stream of the year, which was Hurricane Eric, which hit the Pacific coast of Mexico back in June. And I just haven't, I've forgotten to change that in accordance with the actual country getting hit. But nevertheless, breaking news now. Landfall in Sichuan over Sichuan Island, China. Yeah, wow. So give me a moment here post that update. You have landfall. This will not be. Yeah, Patrick WX saying, "Oh, I was wondering why it was that." Yeah, I just didn't get around to fixing that, but I had to use it, so. But yeah, I made that originally back during the Hurricane Eric landfall, which is why it's a Mexican flag. Wow, wow, wow. Just a moment here, guys. All right. Breaking news, guys. We have landfall over Sichuan Island. Typhoon Ragasa, Nando, also known as Nando in the Philippines, has made his third landfall. All three landfalls so far have been over islands. He will make a fourth landfall over mainland China in the coming hours. All right. KT commenting, what a journey indeed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, here it was. The second landfall. or sorry, the third landfall, second to last landfall here of Typhoon Ragasa Nando. Again, I'll zoom out just to show that massive outflow. At the moment of landfall. KT also commenting, honestly surprised the surge was so strong in Hong Kong. Yeah, again, I know we have 2 videos now, not just one, but still, I am just shocked that we have 2 videos, and which would imply seemingly isolated incidents, but then in those isolated incidents, you had such a violent push of water when there doesn't seem to be like this widespread surge flooding, at least not in reports I've seen thus far. And yeah, that's just crazy that we have those couple of videos. But yeah, so there we have landfall over Sichuan Island, potentially, just the second Category 3 plus typhoon to ever hit Sichuan Island. If you're wondering about Sichuan Island, here it, oops, wait, that's not right. Here it is. This is the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast cone. And as you can see, if we zoom in here, that's what I thought. So originally I thought maybe I would go live here and we wouldn't see actually a landfall, and I'd just kind of be covering the eyeball scraping these Sichuan and Shangchuan Islands. And then, I'd probably have to end the live stream because I'm not sure I was going to be able to live stream all night to the official landfall way over here, which would result in a way weakened storm. But we saw just a little bit jog north. Oops. Just a little bit jog north of that track center line from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. We've seen landfall right here occur. And then where does the second landfall and really the ultimate one occur? Here. Maybe it does come down here a little bit more, right? We know Josh Morgerman's on this island down here. Who knows? We'll have to see. But first and foremost here is the most important landfall. Here we go. Let's see. Sichuan Island. So let's zoom in. So what does Sichuan Island? So here is ground zero for landfall, and also Shangchuan. I'll show you a little bit there of because they got the owl too. But here's Sichuan. Again, not super heavily populated, but there are some areas here, like this little community right here. Oh, actually, this is not community. This appears to be a little bit more industrial. Are these apartment buildings? Not sure. But yeah, nevertheless, you do have people living here. It looks like in some apartment complexes. You can see this is very jagged. This is a very jagged island. Lots of lush green rainforest, but pretty mountainous for how small it is. More buildings down here in the center. So they're definitely getting some pretty wild Category 3, high-end Category 2 conditions right now. Maybe not at this moment because the eye, even though it's caved in, is over them, so the winds might be a little bit calmer than usual. But yeah, so not the worst place. Not super surge vulnerable. Also, you can see how steep some of these cliffs are. Although, whoever's here, they might get a little bit of storm surge inundation for sure. But yeah, so just not a terribly, heavily populated area. This looks like a whole soccer field here, right on the ocean, which is kind of cool if it wasn't for a massive typhoon hitting you directly. And then much of the same is true for Shangchuan Island here. Adjacent, also you can see, kind of cool to zoom in to these wind turbines on satellite imagery. But yeah, Shangchuan Island, much of the same. Steep cliffs, lots of rainforest vegetation. Unlike in the Babian Islands, the vegetation and the local flora and fauna should, relatively be pretty fine here. You're going to see trees come down, sure, but overall, not going to see like that Category 5 deforestation where everything gets just shredded and browned and made look to like an apocalyptic landscape. But yeah, so much of the same on these two islands, so not a bad place for Ragasa to make his first landfall in China. Considering all things considered, because these are also more of tourist islands than anything else. Yeah, definitely good amount of people living here, but whoever is living here, I think they're probably, they've known about the storm for a while. So I think they're probably well prepared for this. Tourist locations probably because they're really cool. I know they're really cool, even though I've never been there. But yeah, so there you go. Landfall here. And here you get a different look of that satellite loop. Landfall. So this is a bit of a longer one. You can see where the eye was. That as it makes landfall. Oops. Oh, I don't mean to put that on top of me. Okay, that's better. All right, so there we have it. Landfall over Sichuan Island. And that's the extended satellite loop. Nito's saying, I sent a video I recorded to under one of your last posts. Oh, okay. Are you okay if we show that video here on stream, Nito? If you're still watching? If not, that's totally fine. I can repost it too. But if you're okay with us showing that on stream, we can certainly do that. Zoom in here. So this is a little bit off, right? This is the model estimation of winds, but the eye is just a little bit off. The eye is over Sichuan Island right now. And there you can see, even though the system has degraded in appearance substantially with satellite and even with radar, that big dry slot coming in and taking over on the eastern side of the storm. Still very potent, still very powerful, and you can see that just by the wind. This wind graph here. This is sustained winds, right? 124 kilometers down here, 67 knots, 77 miles per hour, which oddly kind of fits with what there's a mosquito in here, Nito was saying earlier. Okay, Nito's saying sure. All right. So let's see. Oh, this is super cool. Okay. This is super cool. Okay, guys, we've got real-time footage coming in from Nito. Nito took this himself. Wow. That is some really, really ferocious wave action. Thank you so much, Nito, for sharing this with us and allowing us to show it on stream. That's super cool. Wow, I mean, look at those waves crashing up against the seawall, too. That is some serious, serious turmoil there. Great video. And this really gives you perspective on what we've been looking at, right? What it looks like on the ground when a system as large and with so much inertia and energy from being so powerful so long as Typhoon Ragasa Nando has been, how much a storm like this can churn up the sea and Yeah, that's just nasty. Really, really nasty. Great footage of that really nasty. Look at there in the background. I mean, just look at how high, when those waves crash up, looks like they're crashing up against maybe a seawall or something. Crashing up against something, but look how high they're just exploding upwards. And then obviously you can see very, very strong winds blowing that sea spray. So even though this isn't footage from the landfall we just witnessed, this is footage from, you know, not long ago, earlier today, as Typhoon Ragasa was getting closer to landfall. So I think this is pretty fitting to show this at the moment of landfall, because it's kind of representative of what the conditions are like on the ground here in southern China. As this Category 3 major typhoon makes landfall. We'll let this play one more time, but it is pretty cool and shocking. Definitely shocking to see this. And in addition to this, we've seen separate videos, both from, who was it, Aaron Bush? Yeah, Aaron Bush. 2 videos of waves. One violently crashing through a hotel, waves crashing through a hotel and instantaneously flooding the whole lobby. And then another video where waves come in, break through the glass walls and windows of a restaurant in the Hong Kong area, also completely flooding the first floor, carrying all the furniture, or floating it, rather. So there's some very violent wave action. Just awesome footage from Nando there. And we can see how we got that scene. Nando commenting on that video. There's supposed to be a beach there, but as you can see, it's fully inundated. Yeah, I mean that coastal surf and surge just coming right up and inundating everything right there. And on our wave map here, you can definitely see how you're getting scenes like that with just, I mean, this whole coastline, right? Whole coastline, but especially in the Hong Kong area, where you're getting 15-foot, 4.5, 4.5 meter waves right up against the coast. So, yeah, no surprise there. But definitely really cool to see that. If we go to wind gusts here, that seems to be the story. The wind gusts are the story here with Ragasa's landfall, and that's no surprise. It's not too uncommon that we get these typhoons kind of coming down in intensity, where the sustained winds start not to be as big of a problem, or at least not as powerful, right? So here you got the sustained winds, and you're looking at, 70s, and I think these real-time models, right, the data they're throwing out, I think it's always a little bit on the low end, so I think it's probably higher than that. I don't think the sustained winds are minimum Cat 1. I think that'd be pretty abrupt. So even if Ragasa wasn't a Category 3, I think he was at least a Category 2. But yeah, I mean, that's just, the sustained winds are not as impressive anymore. But here you can see the wind gusts, and this is really kind of fitting also what Nando said earlier when he was talking about he was observing sustained winds of the hurricane, or of the, Category 1 force, right? But then he was getting max wind gusts, I think he said, of 120, which is well into the Category 3 range. So look at this. I mean, this is pretty much showing exactly that. Right here over land, you're getting an estimation of 110 mile per hour wind gusts, or, 110 mile per hour wind gusts, or 176 kilometers per hour. This is in mainland China here. And then look at that, 178, 180 on Shangchuan, no surprise there. Maybe a little bit higher, because this is this right here is a little displaced, right? It's a little too far south with the center of circulation, the strongest winds. So here we see, probably in reality, what Shangchuan's getting is 190 kilometer per hour wind gusts. That would definitely fit That in miles per hour is 118, 120. So we're getting pretty good data here, pretty good consistency on the wind gusts that are potentially happening at the surface level. And then Sichuan, probably similar, 119, 120, or up there at 190 kilometers per hour. So that's your wind gust map. The strongest wind gust now starting to move away from Hong Kong, but we certainly were seeing some pretty good wind gusts there. Still, though, still blowing at, 70 miles per hour. So still 70 mile per hour or 110, 111 kilometer wind gusts happening pretty much right now in Hong Kong. So that's pretty remarkable, yeah. Just giving you a general idea of what the winds are. Where all the way inland here in Enping, Baisha, Taishan, Chishui, Nafu. Big time wind gusts. These are dangerous wind gusts because they can blow down trees. They can topple trees, and that's enough to be deadly. Oh, yeah. I mean, 90 miles per hour. You're getting 90 miles per hour wind gusts, especially that far inland. Look at that. I mean, look, I can go all the way up here. Look at the wind gusts up here. I mean, this is way inland, and you're still getting 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts. And that's, if you're in 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts, that's that's pretty decent. So yeah, here you can see on the wind gust map just the expanse, right? How large Typhoon Ragasa is. Producing these kinds of wind gusts this far inland. $152 kilometers there. What about Yangjing, city of 2.6 million people, 130 kilometer per hour, 135 kilometer per hour wind gusts here, possibly happening as we speak. Maybe even 140 on the eastern side of the city in Yangjing. Yangjing, get ready for that to increase as Ragasa continues to generally move westward in your direction. So Shaipai, Shenyang, and Yangjiang, Zhengzhou. Everyone over here, get ready for these wind gusts to increase. Again, those are wind gusts. 190 kilometers per hour seems to be where it's 192. 120 miles per hour and 190 kilometers per hour seem to be where we're topping out with wind gusts here. So perhaps not sustained winds. Can't know that for sure. But yeah, so big storm, big impactful storm. Nothing catastrophic, right? So nothing like what we were covering in the Babian Islands. And certainly we missed the worst case scenario, which was a direct landfall into Hong Kong. Hong Kong just got skirted. But even by getting skirted that far to the south, and I'll bring you back to this video here, this longer satellite loop of the landfall, the final moments before landfall 2, right? So Hong Kong is up here. And so the core got close, right? Ragasa's core got relatively close, but the eye wall did not come on shore in Hong Kong. And still you had crazy waves like that, crazy winds, lots of rain. Pretty heavy conditions for sure. In terms of rain accumulation, we've seen a good deal of rainfall, 54 millimeters in Hong Kong, or 2 inches. I think that might be a little low, but I'm not sure. I can't speak to that entirely, because I'm not sure how accurate the rain measurements are. I think these might be a little hokey. But in any case, heavy rain, of course, the threat, flooding. So yeah. All right, so there you have it, guys. We have had landfall of Typhoon Ragasa Nando over Sichuan Island in southern China. Potentially, we're going to have to wait later for confirmation of this. Did this storm weaken to a Category 2 before landfall? It's possible, because the eye caved in those last final moments due to land interaction and all that. So maybe this system wasn't quite still a Category 3 plus when he made landfall over Sichuan Island, but nevertheless, we have had landfall, and if Ragasa was a Category 3, he would have been only the second Category 3 in recorded history to hit Sichuan Island. The only other storm to do that we know of was Typhoon Susan back in 1953. So it has been an incredibly long time for Sichuan Island, or really just this general area too, to be hit with a typhoon of Category 3 plus strength. And yeah, so that's what we've seen here tonight on this late night live stream. And also we've been talking about, so in southern China, we've had big storm surge, right? Big time waves, beach erosion. We saw that from videos like what Nando had. Big time storm, big time waves and beach erosion and all that. We've had some isolated incidents of some pretty severe and violent storm surge, waves crashing through the glass walls of a hotel and a restaurant, at least 2 different buildings, maybe more that we know of. So in at least isolated locations in the Hong Kong area, we have had violent storm surge damage. Hong Kong was at signal 10 for a long time, their highest possible storm level warning. We've seen pretty strong wind gusts here, especially now as Ragasa is coming into landfall. 120 plus mile per hour wind gusts being felt on shore. And earlier, we also discussed the aftermath, some of what's coming in, and that news is continuing to come in over the next few days. But so far, actually, the worst damage in terms of fatalities, right, in terms of casualties, at least 14 in Hualien County, Taiwan, due to a dam break that sent a violent rush of floodwaters into Guangfu Township from torrential rainfall dumped from the outer rain bands of Typhoon Ragasa as he was passing through the Luzon Strait. And of course, we have had the first couple damage photos and videos come out of the Babayan Islands of major Category 5 damage where trees are snapped and completely stripped of vegetation. The whole some of those islands, their whole natural flora and fauna just being ravaged, right? Lots of defoliation and a lot of buildings destroyed, and a lot of buildings with their roofs torn off, and many gutted, left only with their concrete walls standing kind of just hollow structures. So hopefully everyone there during the heat of that Category 5 landfall that we saw 2 days ago, that crazy 175 mile per hour plus landfall, hopefully everyone made it there. But yeah, there definitely have been some casualties from Ragasa, and unfortunately many more people are labeled missing, mostly in Hualien County, Taiwan. But of course, we have to see and certainly hope that no one has been hurt or worse, killed here in southern China. But given how many people are being affected, and you know, this, the fact that we're definitely still seeing some severe conditions from Typhoon Ragasa, certainly a concern. So hopefully everyone's okay. But yeah, this has been a deadly and damaging typhoon, the most powerful storm of the year 2 days ago, still a powerful storm right now. And it has just been a crazy and destructive last couple of days in the West Pacific Basin. A basin that up until this point this year has been featuring very well below average activity. Lots of short-lived weak storms. Well, that has changed this week with the formation of Category 5 Super Typhoon Ragasa Nando at peak intensity, Philippines, Taiwan, and now China, affecting a lot of areas and doing a lot of damage. So I think that's going to wrap up our live coverage here, just because it's getting really late and I have other things I must do. So we've seen the most powerful landfall from Ragasa we're going to see in China. There will be a second landfall, right? So continue. This is not over by any means, and we'll continue to cover this on our X account at Backperch Crew. So if you want continued updates, not just of what's happening now, but of course of damage and the aftermath and all stuff like that, we'll be posting it on our X account. And it's not over yet, right? Typhoon Ragasa has made landfall over Sichuan Island, but He still has to make landfall over mainland China here in Guangdong province, basically in the Yangjiang era, right? Yangjiang, a major city of 2.6 million people. So a second landfall is still to come. Several hours from now, probably. And this thing is still going to be producing some severe wind gusts, torrential rain, and very choppy, dangerous surf near the coast for really the next day or so as he moves inland and starts to dissipate. Last couple questions here before we conclude our live coverage of Typhoon Ragasa here on YouTube. Typhoon Hunter's PH says the fact that Ragasa's eye stayed for so long shows how strong it is. Yep, indeed. There's one more time the extended satellite loop of landfall. You can see there the eye was still really formidable, really well organized. During those first couple of frames, Ragasa was still a Category 4 to the south of Hong Kong, producing severe conditions there. Big time storm surge in some locations. And then right as the eye began to collapse, we got landfall over Sichuan Island. All right, so thank you everyone for tuning in and liking the stream, both on X and on YouTube. And follow us at Backperch Crew on X or at Backperch Weather Live on YouTube. We do this kind of stuff all the time. We cover tropical cyclones from around the world, not just in the Atlantic Basin, but here in the West Pacific and the East Pacific, Southern Hemisphere, Indian Ocean. We do it all. Hourly updates when we have significant storms, either out in the ocean, sometimes they're out in the ocean. We just want to nerd out and look about how cool they are and be glad that they're not hitting land. Or in the case that we have storms hitting land, we, of course, cover that as well. And when it's a major storm, like Ragasa here, we hold these live streams. So yeah, that's where we are in social media. This is what we do. And thank you again for everyone supporting us and tuning in tonight. And we will see you again soon.